give people some context as to what is going on in their lives. People have to understand that what is happening to them in their communities is not an isolated incident, but they are part of a bigger family that right now, and for centuries before, have been targeted specifically by a force that wants to eradicate them and divide them, that wants to get them out of their African mind and wants them to do things in the spirit of destroying them. Because when they destroy them, they destroy the balance of the earth. All right, there's an entity out there. I'm not going to say specifically what entity. You guys know what it is. It's an entity that's out there that's eating at us. And we've taken on its habits. We've taken on its customs. We've taken on its traditions. And as African people who have lost our African mind collectively, it is about time that we get back to that. What it means to be an African has always been the center of the debate for those of us who want to go back to Africa and repatriate mentally. But it is very, very important that we continue to discuss that. And what better way to discuss that than to discuss black love, the foundation of any liberation struggle. Because you cannot be liberated until you love. Love is the answer, as corny as that sounds. But love is the answer. If you agree that love is the answer, please raise your hand. All right? And nobody's saying any kind of sucker love where if somebody hits you or does something against you that you just lay down and you take what's coming, but the type of love in which you look deep down in your heart and you understand who you are as a person enough and you go on that journey of healing in order to love yourself and to let somebody love you and to restore balance to your life and to understand what it is that makes you you and to understand that you came from two entities that came in love, right? And pretty much came out to make you, that you yourself are a product of love. So how can we talk about restoring our communities, making sure that our children are safe and are even killed and of the right mind if we don't discuss black love? How do we talk about restoring trust in our communities and building up people and building up industries if we don't talk about black love? How do we talk about respect for our fellow man and our fellow women if we don't talk about black love? Because black love is what pretty much kept our leaders safe and mentally sane throughout much of the struggle. Black love is what made sure that we were all connected as a community. And black love is what's going to make us survive and thrive. Because in this day and age, this so-called post-racial era, this so-called post-civil rights era, there are a lot of people out there that want to stray away from blackness. I'm telling you something right now. In the Babylon system, blackness is classified as something to stray away from, as something that you shouldn't be if you want to advance. The type of advancement they're talking about is political or economic, where you're pretty much their pawn. But those of us who know better know that it is better to be in the midst of blackness, in the midst of the struggle for liberation, than to be a pawn of the Babylonian puppets. I'm telling you something right now, that is the key. And if you have a woke, now I don't like saying woke, that word is too played out. If you have a culturally and socially aware black woman or black man by your side, you are more than likely to do what you have to do in the interest of your community. And there is no denying that at the center of every liberation struggle is a strong unit. And tonight we're going to talk about that because that is the very foundation of what we have to talk about as African people. What does it mean to be in a stable home? What does it mean to create a stable home? What does it mean to pretty much merge with your partner and to build finances? What does it mean to be a mentally strong man or woman and connect with somebody who can fulfill what you need for yourself? What does it mean pretty much to be spiritually complete? Can you be spiritually complete? What does that look like? What does spirituality look like when you and your partner may have different belief systems? How do you reconcile that? Okay? These are questions that need answers. And you cannot go into relationships by happenstance and to just love on people because, oh, you know, this person completes me and I'm so goo-goo gaga and they buy stuff for me. No. Love is a choice that we make every day. Okay? It's a choice that we make every day. And we have to choose to love one another. Especially when it comes to the black man and the black woman. This is not a show about petty arguments. I'm not part of the divestment campaign. I'm not a part of the, forget black chicks campaign or any of that. I'm about black healing. I'm about redemption on both sides. But I'm speaking as a man who only wants to learn. I do not come to you as somebody with the answers, but as somebody who wants to learn. So this show is as much for me as it is for us. So understand that when I'm on this stage tonight, I am talking to you as a man who wants to learn, and I come to you very humbly. And the floor will also be open for you guys to ask questions. So I'm inviting you guys tonight. Let's all come together, learn what it means to be black and to be in love, and bring it out there during the summertime. Because unbeknownst to us, right? Well, not to us in particular, but I'm speaking to a multitude of generations. Those of us, some of the junior elders and the elders in the audience, you guys, might not be aware that there is what the people in this Babylonian system, in the mainstream system, they call cuffing season, then they call the time after, right? During the summertime, we all get clad, we all come out in our best, form, and we go out there just hopping from person to person, being indiscriminate, whatever the case is. A lot of us do it, And when I say us, I'm talking about as a collective, because this is what they talk about in the songs. This is what they talk about in the pop culture. This is an indication of what they want us to be, right? So during the summertime when you're your best, you can't talk about black love. You got to talk about being indiscriminate. This is not what All Eyes on DC is about. Today, we are very deliberate in how we operate as African men and women. So before I bring my panelists, I have to know that you guys are ready. If you guys are ready for this lesson tonight, I need an All Eyes on DC, yeah. Come on,
yeah.
All Eyes on DC. Yeah. One more time, family. On All Eyes on DC, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Please give it up for my first panelist here to talk about the spiritual aspect of black love. Her name is Patricia Patton. She has a show on We Act Radio, Truth to Power, and she's always speaking truth to power. Let's give her a hand, family, please. Come on, y'all. The second panelist I'm about to call to the stage. This brother was on the All Eyes on DC show, as was Sis Patricia Patton at one point, but this brother was on the All Eyes on DC show speaking about grassroots and homeschool education. And tonight he's about to educate us about the mental health aspect of black love. Dr. Jeff Menzise, family. Yeah. Let's give him a hand, y'all. Let's give him a hand.
Electricity.
A lot of powerhouses in the house tonight, y'all. Thank y'all for coming out to get into education. Last but not least, we're talking about the finances. We're going to crunch the numbers, look at the data, right? We're all got to be accountants. It's not just about, just going out there free form, right? This sister has also been a guest on the All Eyes on DC show, talking about what it means to be financially prudent, counting our pennies, and working collectively to make sure that we can build multi-generational wealth, because it is possible despite our situation. And when I'm talking about wealth, I'm not talking about wealth, to the detriment of your fellow man or woman. I'm talking about wealth for everybody, but it starts in the nuclear home. All right? Lisa Whitey Johnson, y'all. Let's give her a hand. All right. This is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm going to give the mic to you first, Lisa. We'll work our way down, left to right, right to left throughout the night. Or just however we see fit, however the flow goes. So, I didn't get a chance to properly introduce my guests in terms of what they offer to the audience. I want to make sure that you guys are getting a really good experience, that you guys know what you're getting into. So, I'm going to allow each guest, starting with Lisa, to just give a little bit of background about what it is that they do, right? And while they're doing so, if they can speak about black love in the context of the financial, the mental, and the spiritual, right? And pretty much talk about why it is in that context that black love often doesn't work out. I think we need to start there. Do y'all agree?
That's a good place.
All right, bet. Lisa, please take it away.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Lisa Johnson. Whitey is the number that I use on Facebook that my friend gave to me, but there's a lot of Lisa Johnson, so it's okay. But my best friend in college did give me that nickname. So we'll talk about the mental health aspect of that a little bit later. But I went to Xavier University of Louisiana. My original field was biology, and through life, I ended up in my true calling, which was teaching our people about finance and teaching about money and how money works and how it's supposed to work for your family and what it means to you. And in terms of this whole black love thing, finances are a part of it. It's not the first thing, but it does touch the mental, it does touch the spiritual, it does touch the physical. So the financial is the root of all that, because You know, the more money that you have, the more money that gets you options, and options are what make you happy. Options are what allow you to be in touch with higher power, whatever you subscribe to as your higher power. Finances are what allow you to, you know, be mentally sound, mentally stable, because you don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from, whether or not you have a roof over your head. So that's where my whole thing fits into this Black love culture.
All right, my name is Jeff Menzise. Background's in clinical psychology. I do life coaching, couples coaching, worked with couples for a long time, you know, different walks of life, different configurations of relationship. As far as the mental health aspect of it, I'm an African psychologist. So I mean, my orientation is the African worldview. And so the psychology is literally the study of the soul, you know. It's not just like the behavior and thought process. It's actually a soul science. And that's the way that I approach it. Looking at our current situation as far as Black love is concerned, my understanding is that we have to get back and redefine, you know, what love is, you know, what Blackness is, what Black love is, and how it is that we actually operationalize it. How do we do that? How do we be Black love, as opposed to chasing Roman antics or romantics and the way that popular culture is telling us, especially our youth, to love and what love feels like. Butterflies, I was breathless. You know, I couldn't sleep, you know, I couldn't eat, you know, all that stuff. You know, we got to get back to defining what it really is and how does that look on a day-to-day basis. We got to get back to defining trust. We got to get back to understanding that the relationships that we enter into are beyond the two individuals, you know, that are courting, that are dating, but it's actually a unification of villages, a unification of entire families. And, you know, you brought up something earlier, good brother, about, you know, what if the religious or spiritual orientations are different between the two? How do you reconcile those things? And so all of that is a part of the mental process of how do you orient yourself to what reality is, what truth is, you know, regardless of what our perspectives are, but what is that which is about the situation and circumstance. And, you know, we'll get into that a little bit later, but, you know, all of those different things are what we have to get back to defining for ourselves and really unapologetically being those things.
Thank you.
Greetings family. My name is Patricia Patton, and I have a show on We Act Radio. Y'all familiar with We Act Radio in Southeast? Okay. I have a radio show called Truth to Power, and it is a show about self-empowerment and self-mastery. And I actually, born and raised in Los Angeles, came to Howard University, got a degree in dental hygiene, and never did it. And I realized that actually I'm just unfolding into myself. I decided that I wanted to know something about who I am, and Spirit has led me on this journey of self-mastery and spirituality. As I sit here on this stage and I look out, I had no clue that I'd be doing any of this. I actually have a license for to be a nail technician. I've actually been doing that for 33 years and realized that I was a healer. When I actually do manicures and pedicures, I am performing a healing ritual on my clients. And actually one of my clients basically sold me a home here in DC, so I'm supposed to be here. But nevertheless, there is a spiritual component in all of us because we are divine beings having a human experience. This is what my Jeddah, Professor James Small, has taught me over and over and over again. And he always tells me that I look at things from a spiritual perspective, from a soul perspective, instead of from a mundane perspective. So when I think of Black love, as far as the Black man or Black woman is concerned, this is the soul space. You know, depending on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole, we can talk about this a little bit later, but basically I am what they call a twin flame initiate. I actually hold an energy and I have a divine purpose in order to help raise the consciousness vibration of humanity, and I definitely have divine complement. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but the spiritual aspect of who we are is most important because we are in a spiritual warfare. And all the experiences that we're having right now are showing us who we truly are as divine beings, and knowing what that vibration is and what it means as far as we're concerned as the original people on this planet. So I bring forth information that comes to me from Spirit, from my higher self, that has led me to what I'm doing right now.
Beautiful introductions. I appreciate y'all. Let's get into it. I think we need. This is a question that's been on my mind, right? So, how have the dynamics of the male-female relationship as established here in the Western world, how has that pretty much been to the detriment of black male and female relationships? You know, spiritually, financially, and just mentally. You know, how have the dynamics, as we've been growing up to learn it, you know, how men should treat women, how women should relate to men. How have those dynamics in the mainstream culture affected us in those 3 seconds?
Well, I kind of think that, you know, based on transatlantic slave trade, that we have had a lot of fears that have been placed in us, you know, in the African mind that we have not healed. And that is passed on from generation to generation, you know. As an African person, I consider myself as an African person, I know that I chose my parents. I chose my parents, and there is something for me to do within my generation, generational lineage, in order to heal something or to bring something forth. So I think what has happened is that we have been raised in a way that does not support who we truly are as the people as we are. So there's been a lot of chaos, and I think that from that perspective that we have to get back to, as I said before, know thyself, because all the information is within us. And when we get to that point of knowing thyself and establishing self-love, then we can bring forth some other things. But I think that we have been taught things that are not a part of our innate nature as divine beings.
I think one of the major things that have negatively impacted us is that we've taken on somebody else's fight. You know, we allow ourselves to be co-opted into other people's worldview struggles. And, you know, they really doesn't have anything to do with us until we buy into it. One thing, for example, is this whole thing about, you know, when men and women are supposed to do the same thing. You know, and I know here, I don't walk on eggshells. I don't walk on eggshells, I don't bite my tongue, it hurts. But you accidentally bit your tongue before, it don't feel good, so I definitely ain't gonna do it on purpose. Now, but what I'm saying is this, is that if we were supposed to be doing the exact same thing, we would be the exact same. You know, I saw both of my babies born. I couldn't do that, right? I mean, it's just some fundamental things that are different, that I don't care what you're talking about, you can't deny those things. And so what we do is we think that we bought into this notion that somehow different is greater than or less than, you know, that because I do this and you do that, there must be one that's superior than the other. And our true understanding, as Obata Shaka would say, is twin lineal. You know, we have lineage that comes from both our mother and our father, you know, and it's for that reason. It's very specific, like whatever it is that's responsible for all of us and all of this being here, it made no mistakes, right? It made man, man, woman, woman, male, female the way that they are for a reason. And so when I look at that and I see that sisters are excellent, some sisters are excellent at some things and some brothers are excellent at other things, and then you can vice versa. My whole thing is just be exactly who you are 100% and quit trying to be what somebody else is, right? I think that's where the problem comes into play, when somebody comes on and start lying to us and saying, oh girl, you should be able to pee standing up. You know, and if y'all seen it's a movie called Truck Turner. I don't know if y'all familiar with it, but you know, it's a B movie. You know, so excuse it. It's about pimping and stuff. So it's not, but it's a perfect example for that, because it was like a sister who was, you know, the pimp got killed, and so she and all of her sisters was coming together to try to get some other pimps to go out and kill the one that killed their pimp. And one of the pimps sitting there, he just chuckled. He said, you trying to pee standing up, and you about to get a bunch of them wet, you know? But it was, no, I feel y'all, you ain't got to feel me. But I mean, I'm from where I'm from, and that's a good example to illustrate this, is that we got roles that we do play and that we play better than others, you know? And so if we can just hold to that and refine that though, you know, get it out the gutter, you know, get it from out the gutter and knock the dust off of it, polish it and shine it back up, and stand strong as the men and women of ancients did. You know, understanding that, yes, like for example, if I had a valuable diamond and I'm trying to ship that diamond across the United States, I'm gonna put that in something that's gonna be able to protect that diamond as it travels. And so when I saw my children in the womb, you know, I'm understanding that this is a vessel that was divinely created to do this task, this divine task, that's responsible for each and every last one of us being here. And you know, so shame on us for allowing somebody else to come in and confuse us about the value of what woman is, right? And start making us think that because she, that she is somehow weaker than he. And I think that when we bought into that right there dealt a major blow to our ability to have healthy relationships on whatever level you want to talk about it on. And again, if we can embrace ourselves for who we are and let other folks have their fights, and we come up out of our confusion and set ourselves stable and move forward as we know that we should be moving forward, I think that we're going to have a leg up. But right now, it's a multi-level assault on us even being able to have that discussion. You know what I mean? It'll be somebody that take a sound bite out of something I just said, and I'll be posted on the internet or some, I don't know, some old whatever, you know, and I'm okay with that, you know, because if you play it in full, it's gonna make sense. And I mean, I'll challenge anybody on it, you know, so like I said, I don't walk on eggshells about this stuff. But again, we got to be able to embrace what the reality is and what truth is. Man is man, woman is woman. You know, I'm not saying women need to be wearing skirts and men wear, I ain't talking about that level of it. I'm just talking about the power of woman and the power of man are complementary energies. And when we start confusing, when I start trying to do what you do, like if I say here, I wish I could breastfeed, y'all seen that craziness, I'm about to be able to breastfeed my baby. So I put on fake, I had my wife pump, I put on some fake boobs and put a bottle in it, and so I'm sitting there nursing the baby. That's confusion. I mean, it's pure confusion. And so once we start buying into that stuff and start talking about it was a pregnant man on Oprah, you know, when we start saying stuff like that, what we're doing, and this is my background in clinical psychology talking now, is that, you know, as far as we know, that's called being delusional. You know, and it's my professional responsibility to not play into the delusion. Like if I sat up here and said, man, I'm a lizard, y'all laughing. But if I said I was something else, y'all would be okay with that. If I'm sitting up here and said, hi, I'm Judy. See, I wouldn't chuckle. Yeah, but okay, because we can't chuckle, because I'm gonna get in trouble if I chuckle at that cat. But to me, it's the same thing. A delusion is when you perceive something that is not what it is. So there's a reality that we got to maintain our grip with. That's all I'm saying. I said all that just to say that.
Very poignant answer. Very poignant answer. Go ahead. Listen, this is where the truth is going to be put.
That's right.
This is why we control our own, media. We have our own platform, so.
And then I intentionally let them speak first, because once you get to separation from spirit, and then you've got fragmentation of culture, now you've got, I say, and everybody here has studied some, aspect of our culture from when we came over through the transatlantic slave trade. We've gotten breaking up of cultures, of families. We have no idea what our identity is, what tribe we identify with, what country we came from. Then we have the breaking down of the familial structure, and then, with the, I'm just going to combine the 60s through the 90s, between the crack epidemic, the 3 strikes you're out law, and all those things of that nature, the black family became fragmented because it was targeted. And so then you have women taking on roles that they're not meant to take on. Now, I don't know what everybody subscribes to. I'm a Christian, raised AME, but basically now more spiritual than religious. But I use that as an illustration because I believe, God first and the man is the head of the household. The woman is, subject to that man, and not subject. And see, some of y'all some of y'all on the line are like, I ain't subject to nobody. See, see, I already know your faces. The man is the head of the household. The woman is supposed to submit and come under submission because the man is supposed to be on a mission. You are a submission. You are supposed to be a partner. So you are under his mission of where your family is supposed to be, and then the children, we are supposed to take care of the children, If I see a man breastfeeding, I just think that's the weirdest thing. But then you had, our brothers are being killed or incarcerated, so then the women have to take on the role of dad and mom. Women are meant to be mom, men are meant to be dad. That's the way it's supposed to be. But then you have women taking on the role of man and woman, and then you have that for an entire generation, and then you have children born under those people who, had to do both roles, and then the children are coming up confused, so they don't know where they're supposed to be. And then you have our brothers being reintroduced into the household as they're men, but they're being raised by women. And a woman can only raise a man from a man's perspective. A man is going to be able to teach his son something different than a mother's supposed to be able to teach her son. And y'all don't have to like me, but it is what it is. And then, so then you have a confusion of roles, and then you have, you know, different families coming together, or different people coming together, or, you know, somebody with their children coming with somebody with their children, and you got blending of different ideas and things of that nature. And then you have two heads of household trying to be heads of household in one household. It ain't gonna work. You know, and then in the financial aspect of all that, you've got the women who have been the breadwinners, and to that point, it's like, well, you're not gonna tell me what I'm gonna do because this is my money, I'm the breadwinner of this household. And then, you know, you got the man coming in, and then it's because the person who makes the money sets the rules, but if you got both people making their own money, setting their own rules, trying to come together, and they haven't, you know, communicated and things of that nature, they have no idea of self, they've separated from spirit. At that point, okay, well, I make more money, so my rules go, and then you have this whole breakdown of the money becomes the master of the household, and that's not supposed to be that way. Money is a great servant, it is a terrible master. So when the only thing that you have, uniting or leading the family is who makes more money, then there's going to be confusion, and that comes from the breakdown of our culture, of, you know, where we're supposed to be and where everything is supposed to fall in line.
Thank you. You know, all great answers, you know, and I'm going to speak to you guys as if I'm just a guy off the street or a woman off the street. I'm walking in Sankofa, this is my first time here, I know nothing about nothing, right? I would probably say that you guys are speaking like a bunch of chauvinists, or you guys are speaking like, you know, just people who are in the past. You know, mind you, I might be a person who's been indoctrinated, you know, who's just immersed in the dominant culture, right? So how do we, right? You know, we still got bills to pay. You know, a lot of our men, like, you know, the major news article said, have disappeared. They've been incarcerated pretty much. Roles have switched up, right? So where do we start? Even before it comes to like just, you know, changing minds. You know, I can even say, for example, you know, speaking to, you know, young professional women, you know, in the past, you know, just hearing about what they describe as their situation and finding somebody who's on the same level as them professionally, you know, just that inequity, right? Given all of those factors that are against us, right, as the black family, just, you know, incarceration, low educational attainment, you know, stuff like that. Where do we start if money doesn't really matter, if money shouldn't matter, but it's still a factor, right? If, you know, if we need to connect spiritually, but we don't have time to because of our current financial situation in this land?
I say first, before you try to get into any relationship with anybody else, you have to get into a relationship with yourself. You have to sit down, you know, have a talk with yourself. You may have to answer yourself. No, you do it. It's okay. And just figure out, you know, how do I feel about money? What am I, you know, how do I view money? Is it, you know, a symbol of power? Is it just a tool that I use? Does it make me feel better about myself when I have money than when I don't have money? You know, am I a saver or hoarder? I have to hold on to everything because, you know, I didn't have growing up, or, you know, things of that nature. And so now I have to save everything I ever have because I didn't have growing up and I'm afraid of losing it. Or am I a spendthrift, you know, ironically for the same reason. I didn't have growing up, so let me buy everything that I can possibly buy to make up for lost time. You know, where do my ideas about money come from? Did they come from my parents? Did they come from my spiritual raising? Did they come from my environment? Is it just something that I picked up, you know, from wherever? Did I read a book and said, oh my goodness, this is how I feel about money for the rest of my life? You know, before you can do anything, you have to understand your own relationship with money and your mindset as to what it means to you before you can even have the conversation with somebody else. And saying, so that is the first step, is understanding it yourself, and then you have to have that conversation. If you are really thinking about, you know, and say this isn't something to break out on the first date. Like, I'm not saying, you know, ask this on the first date, but if y'all been, you know, communicating for a while and y'all feel like y'all might want to take this path together, then y'all need to have this conversation. You know, ask your mate the same questions you ask yourself. How do you feel about money? How were you raised about money? Was it, you know, 2 parents in your household, 1 parent in your household? Did y'all have money fights? You know, did mom not tell dad when she was going out and buying a new purse or something like that? Or, you know, did y'all have arguments about money? Did y'all go on family vacations? Did y'all get everything that y'all needed at school time? You know, just seeing the family dynamic, just even from a child's eyes, did you always have whatever it was that you needed? Did you always get told no, that you couldn't have it? You know, and then just have these conversations and then figure out where you want to go from there, because that's the first step, is figuring out how I feel about money before I can even have a conversation with anybody else. and then go from there.
So follow-up question for you, and then we're going to go to the other two panelists. I got some questions for y'all as well. So in terms of the whole money piece, right, if you're talking about your relationship with money, right, and then you even go into, why is it so hard for people, to talk about, coming out, you're starting out dating, right? Why is it so hard to talk about our finances? If you look at the data, right, a good majority of us, if Black America was a country, it would be on par with like Iraq or, one of the other war-torn countries. Why is it so hard for us to be honest about our financial situation coming in? Hey, I have a few loans I took out during college, or, my house is underwater right now. Why is it that, why is it for some of us it's so hard to talk about that from the outset?
It's a lot. First of all, people don't know self. They don't know who they are. They're not, they're not comfortable in their own skin. I say second, it's because we have been indoctrinated to put up a barrier, just with everybody. I don't need to say no names, y'all know where I'm going with this, but we've been indoctrinated to, put up the walls and to keep up with the Joneses. The Joneses is just as broke as you are, because, they announced this last night. Stop trying to keep up with everybody else and just know where you are. But we're so used to, I have to have this, and that by this age I should have attained this thing. And that's, the blessing and the curse of America, because we are, this is a capitalist society. It is ruled by money. The Constitution of the United States is an economic document. So this country was founded on the principles of money. So if you understand it, it works for you. But if you don't, it works against you. But because we don't understand self, we are not comfortable with self, and then we've never had good relationships with money. I can't tell all that to another person, because I'm supposed to be, I'm 26, which means I'm supposed to have, 2 degrees by now. I'm supposed to be making 6 figures, have, my first house, and be ready to get married. Says who? I say they just as upside down as you are, probably worse. Why are you trying to keep up with somebody and you don't know their situation? So that's part of the problem, is we're just not comfortable in our own skin. So it's like, if I'm not comfortable in my own skin, but I definitely don't want to show you that I'm not comfortable in my own skin, because then some kind of way you can attack me and say, and I don't want to show myself vulnerable. We have a real problem showing vulnerability. So that's another thing.
That's deep. That goes back to what was said earlier about like fighting our own battles and really not getting caught up in the rat race. I want to talk to our other two panelists just about the rites of passage process for a young man and a young woman, mentally and spiritually, right? In this coming of age where you start, figuring out yourself sexually or whatever else, right? What are the pitfalls that are ahead for like an adolescent? Just thinking back to that period, adolescence, adult adolescence, what are the pitfalls mentally and spiritually, for them? And, how can we, overcome those or help those behind us overcome them?
One of the major things that youth are facing is what we call like a road confusion. Right? It's a very pivotal point in time for people to develop their sense of self and their self-concept. And that's why rites of passage exist. That's why the little boys are taken off by the men and the little girls are taken off by the women, so that they can get those lessons, not even just sex as in sexual intercourse, but sex as in your identification. And so that's where you go and you learn about not only who you are as a boy or a male, and as a female or a woman or a girl, what you're going to learn about yourself as a human being, what you are in totality, what your strengths and your weaknesses are, what your life's purpose is, and that way, once you understand better who and what you are, then you're more capable and more ready to engage somebody else who is also an individual who and what they are. And you know how you can blend and how you can mesh. You know exactly what you're bringing to the table. You don't go for that 50-50 nonsense. You go for the 100-100, because right now we're bringing fragmented individuals to the table, trying to feel whole, thinking I'm supposed to be half of it and you're supposed to be half of it. And so that's faulty right there. And that points to the whole value system piece. We've adopted somebody else's value system by adopting somebody else's worldview. And if the value system that we adopted says that material and the acquisition of material is what's most important and what's most valuable, then that's when we run into situations like we can't talk about finances because I'm embarrassed about what my financial situation is. In fact, my orientation, my worldview that I've adopted about finances is what's got me insecurely financed. right? But if I could understand that there are money rituals that my culture brings to the table, then I know how to have a money pot and use certain oils and use certain visualizations, and I know how to read the Old Testament in the Bible when the widow, was without, and she went to the prophet. The prophet said, hey, go on and find every vessel that you can, throughout your whole village, and come back and start filling them joints up and sell them, right? That's straight juju. That's our juju, but we don't know it that way anymore. All we know is finance. We got to go work hard somewhere, sun up to sundown, and we need a job. And if I ain't got a job, I think I'm out of work too. It's not the same thing, but again, that's the value system, and we've been crippled because our rites and passages and our initiation processes have been taken away from us. And then when we still have access to them, we approach them with a worldview that's very limited, a worldview that still only engages it on the surface, on a superficial level. So I was in a class the other day, and I said, what y'all know about Passover? What's Passover about? Oh, that's Passover. No, what's the Old Testament Passover about? So everybody was kind of nervous. They knew where I was going. And one person finally got bold and said, that's when they would smear blood over the doorway so that the spirit of death would pass over their house and not kill their folks, or the children, whatever it was. I said, right. And so why that's okay, but y'all go to some type of African spiritual ritual that calls for some type of sacrificial animal, and y'all get spooked out about that. You see, again, our worldview, we can have it right in front of us. We can participate in these rituals all day long as it's somebody else's. But when it comes down to our own worldview and our own ritual, our own initiation, our own rites of passage, our own way of raising boys into men and girls into women, and then engaging each other as such. When it comes to our stuff, for some reason we're spooked out about it. And it ain't just for some reason, it's because we've been programmed that way. And the oppressor has worked very, very hard to ensure that we have a bad taste in our mouth. We got this bad physical experience that's associated with being ourselves and doing our own thing. And so my thing again, we gotta raise our children according to our way, unapologetically. Unapologetically. Now my children, they know what juju is. They know what ritual is. My baby girl's an initiated priestess because she got initiated with my wife. My wife was nursing at the time. And so they understand the shrines. They understand how we use our juju and our magic to do the things that we're gonna do. And it's all without apology. My children say, are we Christian? I said, well, the definition of being Christian is one who's aspiring to be Christ-like. So absolutely we are. Now here's what Christ looked like. All kind of magic. You going in the water, taking coins out of fish mouth to pay taxes. Damn right, we trying to be Christ-like. Folks was hungry. Dude pulled a fish out of the basket and a little couple pieces of bread and fed a whole bunch of people. Damn right, we trying to be Christ-like. Because they got friends that are Christian now. So does that mean that we believe in Jesus and what Jesus looked like? The white dude that's nailed up on some wood? No, not that one. But the warrior Jesus, absolutely. That juju man, that mystical master, absolutely. Same with Islam. But again, it's without apology that we have to once again reorient ourselves. He said, where to start? Start with the children. Because as Joy DeGroot said, a lot of adults ain't gonna make it. There's a lot of walking dead right now. Real talk, there's a lot of walking dead right now. And if you can discern between the walking dead and those that got a chance, you put your energy towards those that got a chance, and you put that nail in the head of the ones that ain't. Real talk. Because we can't waste time no more, and they become liabilities. So they bite you and then you turn into a walking dead.
I concur. Basically, in ancient Kemet, spirituality was a way of life, and that's how they lived their lives. And because that has not been taught to our people, there has to be some sort of an example or some sort of platform. Then that's what I try to provide in my radio show and the events that I do, for people to expand their minds and know something more about who they truly are. As far as young people are concerned, there's so many examples out here that mean absolutely nothing. It doesn't do anything to help with their self-esteem or really boost them up. So I think that we just have to be examples. We just have to live our lives in a certain way. I said in the beginning that, I use the word twin flame, and I don't really know how to explain it any other kind of way, but there is a time in your life and certain people have a certain energy and they're supposed to come to this space in this dispensation and be living their lives as Christ-like, which is a title, is the anointed one, or as you look at, if you know anything about Magdalene, if she, is just an avatar or whatever, to have to be a high priestess. So it's about self-mastery. So until we get back to that space and really understand what that is, are the ones that are supposed to lead everyone back to themselves, I think that that's really the only solution that I can think of. Because I have nephews and nieces right now, and I'm like, my nieces was twerking on Instagram, and my nephew want to be the next rapper that's sitting out here, and they're just looking like, and I'm trying to understand what they are, doing, in these platforms, and I realize they have low self-esteem. They don't have love for self, you know what I mean? And I realized, at a very young age, I was very voluptuous, and my mother and father grew up in Mississippi. They grew up in the South, came to Los Angeles, and my mom used to tell me to take a brush and brush my hips down because they were too big, or bump them up against the wall, and it's just like to make them smaller, right? And, I was a brick house for real, like 36, 24, 36, but I always had some kind of idea of where the self-hate came in, you know what I mean? And it's passed down from generation to generation. So I just think that we just need to be the best examples as we possibly can and bring the spirituality back into the forefront instead of, and I'm not trying to fit anybody's religion, because I see that as a man-made construct. Just know who you are as a spiritual being, as a divine being, and be that example, for other people so they can just choose how they would like to live their lives. When you get older, you realize that the things that you did at 20, I'm 53 now, so the things I did when I was 20 and 30, I ain't gonna do anymore, you know what I mean? And what's more important to me is making sure that I'm healthy. My father just transitioned on March 2nd, and my mother transitioned in 2007. And I had Dr. Sabi's oldest son on my show this past Wednesday, and he passed, in 2016, and we were just talking, and it's like we are extensions of our family. If they didn't get it right, we can still be the examples, within our family to be able to help, raise the vibration, conscious vibration of our family and ourselves. So we just have to be those examples, because like, Professor Small says, we are our ancestors anyway. But we gotta start walking the walk and talking the talk, you know what I mean? I had a long talk with myself, seeing my father suffer, through his transition, and I'm like, I don't wanna go out like that, and I wanna make sure that, that I'm being the best example that I'm supposed to be as a manifestation of the Creator itself. So I think that the examples that we have to incorporate as far as spirituality is concerned, as the indigenous people of the earth, or autochthonous people of the earth, that we have to really step into that space.
Thank you for that. Follow-up question for you, Patricia, only because I wanted you to dig deeper into some of the gems that you dropped. You talk about, finding yourself spiritually, being the example. Can you go a bit further into that? Just talking about the process, if there is one specific one. What does finding yourself spiritually look like? Especially, if you aren't in close proximity with examples of people who are spiritually balanced, right? Who are just caught up in the same mess that you are.
Well, as you said before, everybody ain't gonna make it, okay? So I can just give you testimony on what happened to me, my examples. I used to be a promoter in the clubs, and I used to promote things that were all black. So I promoted liquor, I promoted music, I promoted urban clothing lines. I had this thing called Industry Tuesday, and I'm promoting all these different things, but they're not edifying our people. So after a while, I just decided I didn't want to do it. And as the only female promoter here in DC that was doing something that nobody was doing, I was in Republic Gardens, I was in DC Live, I have these communications and these DJs, and as a female, I really had to defend myself in a lot of different ways. And I was like, this is not edifying my soul. So what happened was that I was making all this money. I had a nail salon in Silver Spring doing my thing, but I didn't have the relationship that I wanted to have with a man, because the men always felt that I was being combative or I'm doing too much. So I started to look at myself, and when I started to look at myself, then things just started to unfold spiritually within myself. So I think that it's just a process. You got to get interested in yourself. You know thyself is a big boom, you know, and that's why it was put on, you know, the front of every temple in Kemet, you know, for us to understand what that means. When you start, because someone asked me that the other day, they're like, well, how did you get into spirituality? You know what, because I had all the money. You know, I had everything. I was doing and in my soul, I just was not satisfied. And things just started unfolding, and I just, you know, as a Sagittarius, I'm very, very introspective. And that's just who I am. But I wanted more, and I'm still going through the process right now because my twin flame journey is very personal, and I really can't speak of it in the way that I really want to, because I'm still going through this process, you know, with my divine complement and so forth. But you just have to get to the point of understanding that you're here to love yourself. This is the only reason why we're here. All the experiences, when you wake up every day, you're trying to attain peace. You're trying to attain some sort of balance in every aspect of your life. So in those experiences, it propels you, or should propel you to be able to look at yourself in a certain place and honor yourself. So it's all about self-love, pretty much.
So what I'm hearing is from Dr. Menzise and Patricia here is just pretty much digging deep into yourself and pretty much finding out who you are, right? That's what I love. Go ahead, you guys.
Yeah. It's there are some very concrete, you know, methods and steps for achieving this. You know, because when we're talking about, my understanding of spirituality is that it's a science. You know, with step-by-step processes and protocols that will yield certain results. Just like if you combine hydrogen and oxygen, you're going to produce water if you do it properly. You know, there are very specific processes and protocols that have been handed down from generation to generation to generation that our ancestors have kept. You know, I agree, we are our ancestors, and that we have kept one way or the other. And so I would also advise people that no matter what your religious orientation is, that you begin to seek the more mystical and the spiritual aspects of that particular religion. Because every religion has it. You know, it's unfortunate because through the process of oppression, we've been given the artistic expression of the spiritual science. Right? So we've been given the art and not the science of it. So we know how to shout, we know how to sing the songs, we know how to dress, we know how to look the part. But when it comes down, like for example, I just use Christianity as an example again. You know, when we come down to, okay, so how does one become truly Christ-like? You know, you look in the Bible and you're missing the part where Jesus became Christ-like between the ages of 12 and 30, those 18 years. And so they removed the protocol, they removed the processes, they removed the step-by-step stuff. Like you got some books right behind you right there that's dealing with all the Orisha. You know, those are the stories, the Pataki, those are the stories of the Orisha. You got these books over here by Ron and Ahmed. We've got this science that's right here in front of us. The thing that we have to do is to, one, just tell ourselves it's okay to get into that African stuff. I mean, it's real, because a lot of times it's so scary because they work very hard to make us afraid to approach our ancestral spiritual science. I mean, like definitely afraid because we think that stuff is paganistic, it's heathenistic, and if you deal with that, you're going to hell. Like we ain't living in hell already. You feel me? So they got us afraid to go somewhere that we might already be. And they got us afraid to embrace that thing that might free us up from the situation. I did a lot of studying of, my dissertation was actually on rites of passage and how we can use African specific rites of passage with children that are considered at risk to decrease their risky behaviors like substance abuse and risky sexual behaviors. It was strictly cultural knowledge. It had nothing to do with sex education or anti-drug education. It was strictly cultural knowledge. When they came out on the other side of this process, they was less likely to smoke cigarettes, smoke weeds, dipper, they less likely to drink. They was less likely to have so much promiscuous sex unprotected and all. It was just because of the cultural knowledge. And so they scared the hell out of us. I mean, they literally beat it out of us sometimes. Like they would show you, they would find the Salem witchcraft trials. You know, that was the white women getting boiled and stuff, but they did the same thing to us. There are books where they talk about the European missionaries going into Africa. What they don't tell you about is what they did before they came into Africa. They beefed up their witchcraft before they came onto the continent of Africa to attack our quote-unquote witchcraft. And they sent the missionaries in there. And they would identify those things that we would do that maintained our strength. And they started attacking those things. So then they had a weakened population that they could come in and assault at a deeper level, and then to start shipping them out by the millions. You see, we missed that part of his story, because he ain't gonna tell that part of his story, because then we know where to look. Same thing with Hitler. His whole SS, his inner circle, were all occult masters. They were all working their witchcraft. And so what they did, they were going around the world to find spiritual relics that they can use to strengthen their cause to take over. And so we got folks using their stuff without apology, and our ancestors is in unemployment lines. You know, our juju is on the shelf collecting dust. You know, our juju is being manipulated in such a way that we're using it against ourselves now. You know, our creative visualization, they get all these videos and stuff about black folks getting beat up by cops and being murdered and all this stuff, World Star and all this stuff going on, not realizing that that's tapping into our own ability to visualize and make manifest reality. But they're feeding us the things that we're going to visualize and make manifest for ourselves.
So it's like it's a cycle.
It's a big cycle.
Yeah.
It's bondage. It's straight up bondage.
What's the financial piece in that, Lisa? If you wouldn't mind talking, you know, I like the point that was brought up here about, you know, just actualizing your condition, you know. How does that play financially, you know, as a black person, you know, as a you know, if I'm just downtrodden in general, you know, there's great debate, you know, I'm pretty sure you guys are aware of the whole Boyce Watkins, Yvette Carnell thing, you know, politics versus business, whatever, but how does that play as far as like the whole financial piece, you know? How do you know, if I am in a bad predicament, right, as a black person in this country, what do I need to click on in my head to keep me going, you know, in terms of just, I guess, being financially savvy, or just finding different streams of income, or just, you know, getting it pretty much from the bottom?
Okay, first to piggyback off of what Patricia said, she said how she wasn't fulfilled when she, you know, was making how much ever you were making, because money is never meant to be the object. Money is meant to be the tool, and that's why I always, you know, defer to my spiritual and mental counterparts before I speak, because you have to get the spiritual right. And in my mastermind group, one of our favorite, you know, mantras is take what's for you and leave the rest. And so, you know, first it is about finding self. And so I was raised AME. And then when I started my own personal journey of, you know, finding self, I've been to, you know, obviously several AME churches. I have worshiped at a Muslim mosque. I have been to Quaker meeting. You know, whatever, you know, your higher power is with you wherever you go. So it doesn't really matter what house of worship you're in. I mean, obviously, if you're a Christian, don't go into, you know, a Satanist, you know, place of quote unquote worship. But you know what I'm saying. You know, it doesn't matter what the title is. See, that's another problem that people get to call them in titles. So, you know, just go visit wherever it is, and then whatever it feels like sticks with you, go with that. Because then you're connecting with self, and then you can start to grow economically. Because money is meant to be a certificate of service. I'm doing you got a dollar on?
Good one, stuff.
Right. Let me get $10.
You want 10?
I ain't had that.
Let me borrow 50. So he's actually kind of ruining my experiment. But the point is that, you know, after a point, when somebody keeps borrowing money from you, it's like, when am I going to get my money back? And what have you done for me lately? Because they haven't provided a service. They're just, okay, I'm handing you this money. When am I going to get that? That's why so if you let somebody borrow $1, you can't wait to get that dollar back. You can make it 6 figures, and it's like, but if they've done something for you, you have no problem giving the money away, because money is meant to be a certificate of service. That's covered in the Bible. That's covered in, you know, probably the Quran and whatever spiritual book you read. Money is meant to be a certificate of service. You know, business is in the Bible. So once you figure out self, then you can start to, you know, grow financially and things of that nature, because everybody as a matter of fact, this is where I usually bring up the Jews, and this is where people start looking at me funny, but go with me for a second. The Jews attach money to their spirituality, because to be broke is a sin, because the way God sees it, I'm only supposed to make money legally, morally, and ethically if I provided a service to another human being. So if I, mow your lawn, or if I, get you a glass of water, or if I do whatever, certificate of service, then you are supposed to be compensated for that. That's just how we denote, who has provided the best service for us, because we've gotten off the barter system. If you had pigs and I had coconuts, but you didn't need coconuts, you needed apples. I don't have apples. We just use money as a way of, this is a uniform currency. That means you have at some point to provide to me the pigs that I needed. And so instead of giving you coconuts, I gave you this paper tender with some, dead white president on it that says that you have, given me a pig. But the money is supposed to be a certificate of service. And so then that gets into how you, okay, so I'm going back to the Jews, they attach it to their spirituality. So to have to serve another person in order to make money means that if you're broke, you haven't served another person. And if you haven't served another person, you haven't therefore served God. And so therefore being broke is a sin. So they directly attached it to their spirituality. So then you'll understand self, understand, what service you can provide in the marketplace. And then that's why you have people who make more money than others, because they are providing a bigger value in the marketplace. Does that mean that they are more valuable as a person? No, because there's some terrible people out there who have a lot of money. That's why, money has become so denigrated. Money just means that I have served more people than you. Think about it. Who's the biggest retailer? Nordstrom or Walmart? Walmart, right? Why? Because it reaches more people. Who's the biggest, fast food giant? McDonald's, right? Because it has more outlets. Therefore, 40 or 60 or how many ever trillion served, they've served more people, they have made more money. So you can see it in every, any kind of marketplace. And so then when you start tying, the problem is when people start tying money to self-worth. It's never meant to be, tied to your self-worth. It's meant to be tied to your acts of service. And so then when you get people who have businesses versus people who have jobs, your job defines how much you make, because your value in the marketplace is at this level, at this job. When you have a business, you define your own self in the marketplace. And that's why you see people who have started their own business. I know at least 5 of y'all have friends who started their own business and they was giving away services for free, and now they charge, and you're like, why are you charging so much? Because I'm better, I provide a better service to the marketplace because I've grown in my craft. And therefore I deserve to make more money. You don't like it, you can go down the street. And guess what? You get what you pay for, don't you? 9 times out of 10, sometimes people just overcharge, but we ain't talking about that. So that's where you have to discern, first of all, who are you spiritually? Then what service can you provide that people are willing to pay for in the marketplace, and then not tie your self-worth to the money that you're making. And if you are, everybody, of course everybody has to do what they have to do. I'm not saying, quit your job tomorrow and go out and, start whatever, but figure out what value you can bring to the marketplace. Can you sing? Can you juggle fish? Can you do, are you a spoken word person? Are you an author? Whatever it is that brings a value to the marketplace that people are willing to pay for, use that to diversify your income. And another, and I'll wrap up with this point, is don't think of money in terms of trading time for dollars, because we only have 24 hours in a day. But there are some people who are homeless, and then you have some people who are trillions. It's because of how many streams of income do they have, and have they leveraged themselves? Are they able to start a system that is able to perpetuate money, whether or not they're there, whether or not they're sleeping? If your only way to make money is to physically be there, you will always limit your income, because you only have 24 hours a day, and then you will burn yourself out.
Good, because my follow-up question was related to that. Those of us who are there, right? So this is a 2-part question, right? So how do I reconcile this conflict between getting this certificate of service, right? These dollars, and pretty much not having enough time to nurture my relationship, right? We all live in a society where a good number of us, I know some of us have personal experience with this. We have to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs at times, right? Some of us are freelance, we have freelance consulting jobs, stuff like that. We all have goals, right? And oftentimes you have couples, you know, they might be working 2-3 jobs between them, and they might not have enough time to nurture, right? But if they do want to nurture, oftentimes it's about, well, you know, do we have enough free time? Or, you know, if we do sacrifice to have free time, how are we going to, you know, get these needs met, right? So how do we reconcile that? You know, because you're talking about financial stability, right? And pretty much going out there and getting it, but at the same time, don't we need to, like, you know, nurture, you know, each other, you know, spiritually and mentally in that sense? And I think this speaks to how good of a panel this is, because oftentimes, right, people think that the three often compete with one another. But I'm hoping tonight to do an experiment and hopefully show that, you know, they can all work, you know, they can all be synchronized. But I want to see real quick, how do we reconcile that? The need to, you know, financially be straight, you know, with just, you know, this time crunch, right? To be everywhere at once between our jobs and tending to our loved ones and our families.
At the beginning and ending of the day, it's whoever you're going home to at night, even if that's yourself, first of all. Second of all, everybody has the same 168 hours in the week. So you need to communicate with whoever you go home to at night, whether that be self or whether that be spouse, and prioritize. And this is where we get back into being able, you know yourself, and then being able to, you know, have these defined roles. And if y'all haven't defined the roles, y'all can't have the money conversation. So you have to know self, then, you know, define your roles in the relationship. And if y'all haven't had this conversation, you have to, you know, define, okay, what is it that where are we going with this? What are we just here, you know, to pay bills and die? Of course not. So define those two aspects first, and then, okay, then prioritize. How many hours a day do we spend? Like, I do this myself. How many hours a day do you spend sleeping? Because, you know, sleep is a necessity. You will die without enough sleep. How much time do you spend, you know, eating and drinking? How much time do you spend going to work? And that includes your commute time and everything like that. Because you do have to pay the bills right now. But, you know, how much time do you have to do that? And then how much quality time are you spending with your spouse after you get home? After those priorities are met, screw everything else. Because a lot of times it's wasted time, you know, it's like, where did my time go? Do a time audit. How much time are you spending in front of the TV? Watching, like, indoctrinating yourself with a bunch of poison. You know, how much time are you spending going out to, you know, and I'm not trying to downplay anybody's fun, but doing things that aren't edifying your relationship. Cut those things out first. And then figure out, okay, where is it that we want to go? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? Where do we see ourselves in 5, 10, 20 years? Do we want to, you know, retire to Aruba and everything like that? First of all, figure out what retirement is to you, because here's a little tidbit. Retirement is a dollar amount, not an age. Okay? That's why you have people that are retired at 35 and people who literally die on the job at like 90. Okay? Retirement is a dollar amount, not an age. So figure out, first of all, do you like what you do? Every time you get up in the morning, are you in love with, I can't wait to get to work because this is truly my passion, I just haven't been compensated for it? Or is it, this is what I went to school for and I gotta pay off these daggone student loans, so I'm gonna stick it myself in this job even though I hate it and it's killing my relationship because I bring all that crap home? You know, what is it that, you know, is driving you, first of all? Then figure out where it is that you know, what it is that you want to accomplish. You want to, you know, retire in Aruba in 2 years, fine. Figure out where it is you want to go to Aruba and attach a dollar amount to it. This is kind of where I come in. Figure out the dollar amount and then what it's going to take to get you there. And then have the conversation, babe, you know, do you want to leave your job? How do you feel? Because every time you come home, you're stressed, you're complaining about your boss, you're complaining about that idiot Sheila, you know, who, you know, or Kathy or Susie or whoever that said something to you at the break room. Do you want to quit? Then figure out, because at the end of the day, if you can't play with your spouse and be, you know, comfortable, what are you doing all this for? Then figure out, okay, well, what bills have to be met? What bills can we do without? Maybe you got to cut cable. Maybe you got to go from the high data plan to the low data plan. And then, you know, work those things out and then figure out, is it another job you can move to? Is it a business that you want to start? You know, how do we keep ourselves above board? I'm not saying, you know, don't pay, you know, mortgage or rent. Right. But all the frilly stuff that y'all can do without that, and then figure out, you know, then have the next conversation. And then, okay, we can quit that. You know, we can move you here, or maybe get rid of this job, just we'll figure something out. Or, you know, we can cut back on this so you don't have to do this.
So that sounds like to me just agreeing and having the same set of values pretty much. Right. And that comes down to the financial piece. I think the doctor wanted to say something. I'm gonna let you say what you gotta say, and then I got a really important question, a really timely question, you know, and I think the audience is very aware of what's going on in our conversations, both amongst ourselves and on social media, so I really want to touch on that. But I'm gonna let Dr. Menzise make a quick comment.
All right, so when you spoke about when the Jewish people were brought up earlier, yes, the money is tied to their religion, but there's a spiritual science on that. They're not working hard. If you actually look at a bill, these promissory notes, there's all type of ritual script on them joints. I mean, it's a certain dimension on that bill. There's certain symbols on that bill. There's certain words and writings on those bills. There's a ritual. It's called a money hunting ritual, to where you can turn your money into a pursuer of money for you. There are people who work in their sleep. Don't get it twisted. You know, yeah, we got 24 hours in a day. You know, but I literally know people who go to sleep instead of fall asleep. And they go to sleep with the intention of doing work in their sleep, so that when they wake up, the effort is less. The effort that's required to get the same results as somebody that's going in and punching a clock is less, right? And so there are more efficient and effective ways to approach it, but again, you've got to have a proper worldview without apology. Another thing as far as relationships and money is concerned, the one thing that we've also been skewed about, our understanding has been skewed about what sex and intimacy actually is. We talk about procreation, but we think about the creating of another life, like giving birth to another baby, conceiving a baby. But there are actually ways to use sex and intimacy to generate and produce and create other things, like wealth, like companies, like resources, to manifest projects. You know, there are people who energize their business plan using sexual energy. You see, and so that's one of the things that we've been confused about as well, is like, what does it mean to have a partner? You know, somebody that you're sexually intimate with. That ain't just about feel good and getting your rocks off. You know, you can really take that energy and manifest things from its use. And this is how highly effective and efficiently successful people operate. That's what they're doing. That's why when you hear about all these satanic cults and stuff that you hear about with the, you know, burning the owls and stuff back in the woods, you know, them folks, and they always talk about how they have these weird, wild sex orgies. That's what they're doing it for. They out there maintaining their power and their position of power by using every bit of energy that they can access, including sexual energy. That's one of the main reasons why relationships between men and women was disrupted during oppression. They had to take it and they had to master our sex. They mastered our sex by forcing us to breed. They said, you all will not be able to use this for anything but to produce more enslaved Africans for us. And so they took it and they twisted it. It was a sex assault, right? It was traumatic. And so ever since then, sex has been an attempt to reconcile that original trauma. And they tell us it happened with Eve in the beginning, but I don't buy that stuff. It happened with them asses, right? They did that. And so everything is an attempt to reconcile that trauma. And we don't understand that that's what it actually is. And so we keep going and we keep going and we keep going, never trying to heal nor reclaim the true power that's within our sexuality and intimacy. But all of that, you talk about economics. Economics is time spent, period. You know, that's why human resource, the human resource is the #1 resource on this planet. If you could control the human resource, you control everything else. And the way to control the human resource is to control the human mind. And you warp that to confuse us about our access to the human spirit, which is our source of power. And if you could twist that up, then you leave us down here like beasts of the field. And it's a done deal. Continually to breed, continually to throw away millions and millions of billions of sperm cells with each ejaculation. Each one is a potential life. Think about that. Each individual sperm cell is a potential you and doing everything that you've done in your entire life. Think about all that power right there. And it's gone by the millions. Sometimes 3-4 times a day, sometimes within a matter of seconds. Right? But again, that's the mastering of your sexuality. It's taking that as opposed to throwing it out. You know, you keep it in and you use that energy to manifest stuff. That's what every black love used to be about. They got it twisted. They got, who was it say? Tupac said, I'll be a 2-minute brother for a $10 hoe. You know, it's all through the music. The whole thing is about ejaculation. It's all about that. It's about wasting our sexual energy and wasting our potential to relate to each other on an intimate level. That's what it is. Get your money up that way. Them Jewish folks ain't working hard. I'll say that.
Oh no, they're working smart.
They're working smart. Money working for them. Their money hunting.
Yeah.
Let's give the panel a hand, y'all. Sometime down the line, there'll be opportunity for an audience Q&A. I wanted to pivot the conversation. I'm going to let Sis Patty pretty much jump in on this one. And, you know, pretty much I want all panelists in general to weigh in on this. Right now, in this critical juncture in our liberation struggle, you know, there's been a lot of attention shown on male-female relationships within the Black community in the context of patriarchy, in the context of the role that patriarchy has had in limiting our potential to be, I guess, fully liberated. You know, and you have two competing schools of thought. I'm not going to overgeneralize, but you have two competing schools of thought. You have what some might consider the more progressive sisters and, you know, some brothers who pretty much want to, you know, say abolish patriarchy and make stuff, you know, more equal, and they want to, and they often look to, I guess, the idiosyncrasies of our leaders, you know, the Frederick Douglasses who married outside of their race, you know, the MLKs who cheated on their wives profusely, even the patriarchy of the Black Panther Party. Then you have those who pretty much look at that and say, well, you're doing the bidding of feminists, you know, you're out here just, you know, let's not worry about that, you know, let's all just heal as Black men and Black women. There's no need to bring that up. That was in the past, whatever. You know, I don't want to overgeneralize, but I hope the audience and the panel is getting the gist of what I'm saying. Just this battle right here, right? As we're working to fight racism, there's this dialogue within our community, right? What is your take on that as far as just the conversation, you know, around, you know, male-female relationships and just this yearning within the community, especially among the sisters, right, to do what they describe as restoring balance and just really affirming the femininity within, you know, each and every one of us.
Well, if people are familiar with the story of Asar and Aset, he basically got himself in a coffin, put himself in a space, and his queen basically had to resurrect him with finding all his pieces and put his physicality back together. And that 14th piece, she created alchemy, created that third energy, which was Farouk, which was courage. I think that, as far as I'm concerned, because I'm not in a relationship that you would see in a third dimension. I'm in a fifth dimensional relationship. You know, I have some things I have to work out on a soul space in order for me to come into union with my divine counterpart. So I think that from that perspective, that we have to just know who we are and what our roles are, as they both have said, you know, earlier. You know, as a manifestation of the Creator in a feminine expression and then as in a masculine expression. I think that what we have been given as far as being over here in America, maybe even worldwide, maybe, you know, as far as it is concerned with these different European groups taking over, you know, different countries, you know, their ways that they think. I just think that basically we just have to get back to a spiritual space, period. You know, because when I think about, you know, my family growing up, my parents are from Meridian, Mississippi, and my mother has roots in the Blackfoot Indian tribe, Choctaw. And my father basically used to tell me, you know, I don't know why you think that, you know, you have African in you, you got more white in you than you do, you know, Black, you know what I mean? So I just think that from a spiritual perspective, that you have to do what you're interested in, you know, if that interests you, you know, because I know a lot of times, you know, I grew up in a Catholic whole parish in Los Angeles. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade, and I went back home, you know, for my father's funeral services and linked up with some of my friends, and they're still in that same way of thinking. They haven't expanded outside of that. You know, they just are comfortable within that space. So I just think that it's just all about what you're truly interested in. You know, somebody that I've been friends with since ninth grade basically told me that told some people, well, she's weird now. I don't even want to be friends with her. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm 53. Like, really? Like, but you just have to do what works for you. And I think that if you're honest and truthful with yourself and finding what that truth is, it's going to manifest itself in whatever way, and lead you to wherever you need to be led to, pretty much.
Yeah.
Patriarchy.
Patriarchy, yeah.
We got to define stuff for ourselves. By jumping into that fight to abolish patriarchy. Like, what is patriarchy? We got to ask that question. Right? Where does this concept come from? Whose fight is that for real? I think that if we would return to, again, as I said earlier, return to our understanding of what we are as individuals as well as complements, then we realize that ain't the fight for us. Because what I understand about it is that that's a white woman's fight to be equal to her man. And because we are under their system, under their construct, yes, we have bought into it and we go along with it and have adopted some of those ways. But our return to our understanding, when I say our, I mean our worldview, African-centered worldview, our understanding of that whole process, then we say, well, wait a minute, yeah, that does exist. That's real. You do have male domination. You do have these things. You do have male chauvinism. You do have these things, which is an outshoot, is an outgrowth of white supremacy, right? And even people say, well, no, even on the continent of Africa, what do you think? Yeah, exactly. That's where they landed there, they colonized there, right? The same way they enslaved out of there. But again, if we return to that twin lineal perspective, when you look at the ancient Kemetic statues, you're gonna see the queen mother sitting next to the king, and she's gonna be embracing him like that. She's gonna be holding him. They're gonna both be their rulers, equal and powerful as she is, equal and powerful as he is. Not necessarily doing the same things, but equal as far as the respect that's there, equal as far as the value is concerned, right? But again, if we don't do that, then yes, we will continue to fight these folks, fight for them and with them, and we'll be the ones that ultimately lose. Because I don't know what y'all thought, but if white women ever overcome patriarchy, racism's still gonna be in place. It's just gonna be a woman running it, a white woman running it. I mean, think about it. If you look at these folks that are calling the police on black people right now, it's a lot of white women doing it. If you look back at the plantation, who used to abuse the little African black babies? They were white women. She gets a pass a lot of times. And so, if we understood truly that mission and what they have consistently and constantly done, and for the sake of promoting and benefiting and perpetuating racism, we would immediately step back like, yeah, I don't know about that, Becky. I don't know if I want to jump on board of your mission to overthrow patriarchy, because I don't know what that means for us. Now, Becky, you talking about overthrowing racism, white supremacy, we all in. But to overthrow patriarchy, I don't know about that. It's confusing to me. Because I don't know what you're talking about for real. I know what you do. I know how you would force yourself on the black men, and when that baby came out less than white, meaning darker, then you said dude raped you. I do know those stories, right? And so I think that if we don't understand what's really going on, we'll be confused by this whole patriarchy. Somebody talked about man spreading. That's the thing, because before you cross your legs, you would sit here like I was sitting here with our legs open. So a thing about patriarchy, this is supposed to be a patriarchal expression, and they call it man spread. I mean, you taking up the room for women by sitting with your legs open. Right. And there are really people, like, I've gotten cussed out for that before, like on the train or something. Why are you man spreading? I'm like, do I really need to give you a lesson in anatomy right now? You get it? Yeah. For those who don't know, men got testicles. And they typically hang between your legs. It don't feel good to tightly cross our legs. I mean, you can do it, it happens, we do it. But that ain't I'm sitting like this because I sit like this. But again, this is the part thing I'm talking about with this patriarchy thing. We get it, we get confused sometimes. And we get misled by their language and the way that they cloak in words and constructing these arguments. And they can point out situations like, sister, aren't you tired of no good black men? And you're like, damn right I am, right? And it struck a nerve because there's some reality there. But they confuse you about the origin of that reality. And they make you think that their reality is yours and that if they achieve their goals, then you will too. And that just ain't the case. You know, I'm very clear about that. And so, you know, I do understand male chauvinism and all this other stuff, yeah, it's got to go. You know, but the only way for us to truly be able to be balanced in that situation is for us to understand the value that we each hold within ourselves as male and female men and women, independent of what them folks is talking about. We got to restore that for ourselves, you know? Real quick sidebar, I saw a little white dude with his African nanny the other day, you know, walking down the street. A little white boy, he must have been about 5 or 6 years old. He had an African nanny walking him down the street holding his hand. I said, I wonder how that impacts him and his perspective of black women as he grows into a white man, having been taken care of from his formidable years by a black woman. You know, back in the day, it was actually nursing. You know, they suckled at the breast of black women. I wonder how that translates later in life. You know, and some would say it's a sexual desire. That might be where that sexual desire comes from that closeness and that nurturing. But you know, so it's. And I only bring that up to say that it's so much behind the scenes of European patriarchy. You know, that we would have to really do a deep analysis, even to that level, of wondering how white men that were suckled by black women end up growing up and perpetuate their systems of patriarchy, and how does that impact white women's perspective of them and white women's perspective of black women and white women's perspective of black men, right? See, this thing is nuanced, and if we can't do more than a surface treatment of it, you know, we're going to stay confused about what's really happening around us.
So what does the discussion look like if you do want to get into nuance and we do want to talk about, you know, restoring balance, absent of the Eurocentric programming that's been happening to us, right? And we also talked about systems, right? You know, and procedures and processes, right? In all three aspects, right? And this is a good segue to the counseling aspect, right? What does that look like, right? If me and a woman, right, you know, if we're talking about counseling or if we're talking about just any type of, you know, long form discussion, right? You know, stripping away just the old and coming with the new. How does that look? I want to start with you, Doc. You know, just in terms of, you know, of what you were speaking about before.
African-centered rites of passage programs, manhood training and womanhood training. It looks just like that. It looks like brothers going and getting with some men that are initiated and you becoming initiated too. Sisters going to get with some women that are initiated and you going to get initiated too. And something that's authentic and something that's bona fide. Not some old charlatan that's trying to take your money and, you know what I mean? I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about bona fide rites of passage initiation processes, manhood and womanhood training. That's what's at the core. That's what they fought so hard to tear away from us. They took away our rites of passage when we hit puberty, and they gave us driver's license, right? They give you 18 to buy tobacco products, 21 to buy alcohol. They give us these arbitrary markers, you know, of maturation that don't amount to real manhood and womanhood training and development, right? In our cultures and our worldview and our societies, unblemished, you know, by their assault, their cultural, spiritual, and psychological assault. You know, that's what we had. When you going back to our friends, the Jewish people, they still got theirs. It's called the bar mitzvah and the bat mitzvah. That's right. They still doing it. That's what you're talking about. You can't talk about their success without talking about their culture and their spirituality being intact. I had this Jewish dude, we got into a debate up at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum in Baltimore, and we came back around just to kind of reconcile the differences. And he sat there and I saw him pull an idea out the ethers and give it to me. He sat back, he went to like a little trance, looked up. He said, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll give you this one. He said, here you go. If you do this, you're guaranteed. And it was real. I bet money on what he pulled down the hand. I looked at it and said, all right, now when I do it, you ain't gonna try to sue me, are you? Saying that you gave me the idea.
Seriously.
Real talk. That's what I'm saying. If we don't embrace our worldview and understand that magic and this spiritual science is real, then we're wasting time. We're wasting time. We don't understand that it's real, and that's how people are actually operating in this world, and that's why it seems like things is going so easy for them. We lost. We ain't gonna get it.
All right, Lisa, if you can speak on the financial counseling piece. and then we'll open up for questions once you get past the counseling piece. But, you know, if we are coming together as a unit, you know, two families, what does like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan or a 20-year plan look like financially if we want to build, you know, if we want to build some sort of stability within that unit?
Well, generally, when I sit down with clients, I can already tell who's had that conversation because they got this laid out, this laid out, this laid out. They just may need, you know, tweaking here and there. They need to know, you know, a nut and a bolt. You can tell the people who haven't had the conversation because sometimes you'll have one person doing all the talking and one person just sitting there kind of quiet and shifty and like, I'm uncomfortable with what my spouse is saying, but I'm going with it. And it's like, I can pick up on that. And so that's, you know, intuition and learning self, and I'm an empath, so I can pick up on that. I'm like, you know, is that what you want to do? And then obviously if I'm speaking, you know, to married couples, especially if I'm, you know, mostly speaking to the wife and, you know, the husband is uncomfortable, I have to get permission to, you know, do you mind if I speak to the husband? Because, you know, that's interplay with, you know, male-female relationships. Like, I'm not trying to do nothing except for make sure y'all all right. So, and then you can tell if they never had the conversation, but it seems like they want to go the same way. Like generally when talking about legacy planning, and like if they, especially if they have children. So I'm like, you know, just hypothetical, because y'all do take vacations together, right? Okay, so, or, you know, you do things where you travel together. All right, so what happens if both of you pass away? What happens to your children? There have been so many couples who said, I don't even know where they would go. It's like, okay, so we need to talk about that. Because I don't always say it's just because somebody looks good on paper does not mean that, you know, that's who's supposed to take care of the children and things of that nature. Because, you know, it's like my sister may look, you know, great on paper. You know, she's got the house and the finances, blah, blah, blah. But you'd rather your godchild, your god sibling take care of your children or something like that. It just goes into have you guys, I can tell whether or not you guys have already had this conversation if you're already on one accord before, you know, after just a couple minutes and a couple questions based on, okay, we've talked about this, she wants to do this. So like if they can get to the point where they're answering each other's sentences and answering each other's questions, like, well, I know my husband wants to do, you know, blah, 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 and like, yeah, but she wants to go do da, 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 how do we accomplish both of these? All right, y'all are in a different space than, you know, help us. We don't even know what questions to ask. So it's, yeah, that's the biggest part of the counseling piece is that have you had any communication before I came in? And then after that, it's like, okay, well, we need to start having these conversations. I can have it like one-on-one, we can have them together, or we can, you know, have a couple continual conversations because sometimes there will be something that you will tell me that you, for some reason, won't feel comfortable telling your spouse. And I'm like, this person you're going to bed with at night, I'm relatively a stranger coming into your house. Why do I? But for some reason, we're more comfortable telling, you know, that's why counselors exist in any shape or form. You know, we're more comfortable telling a stranger this is what's going on than having this conversation with our spouse. But we need to get that together before we can start having the financial talk because I can't talk about your house in Aruba if y'all don't even know where y'all kids are gonna go.
How do you feel about that? The fact that people feel more comfortable talking with counselors than they would each other about stuff as sensitive as that? Because you did just bring it up. So what are your thoughts on that? You know.
I think it's something that we've gotten used to in this culture, and again, it's you know, building up those barriers, and then it's also the titles and the expectations we place on people. Like this is supposed to be the expert. So I do understand that in that context, like you're supposed to be the expert, you know, regardless of what's going on, and you guys are supposed to know what questions to ask. But it is kind of weird. But you know, then that looks at the strength of the relationship, because maybe your relationship ain't where it needs to be. Because I always tell people, yeah, my licenses are in the money, but sometimes I'm just a relationship counselor because you get different types of personalities, you get different financial personalities. Like, you know, just like you're not supposed to have, you know, believer and non-believer yoked together, you know, and say be not equally, unequally yoked. That's financially too. If you got a spender and a saver, that's trouble in paradise. If you got, you know, the penny pincher, you know, and the person who's just like, we'll just figure it out, it's just, you know, whatever, you know, maybe y'all need to go to another type of relationship counselor before y'all can come to me. But first of all, let's make sure it's in your budget.
That pretty much goes back. Definitely, yeah, the budgeting, man. That's a piece that I'll be honest. I just started working on it in recent years, a few months actually. Like, it's very helpful. But I think you guys pretty much spoke about the knowing thyself part, and just how knowing yourself first pretty much is helpful in finding the right partner and just being honest and open. Patricia, if you could just talk about the counseling piece, once again, in everything that we talked about, you more than any panelist, from what I recall, really focused on the knowing yourself part, right? So now that you know yourself, right, and your partner knows themselves, right, how does that manifest into knowing how you two interact? What does that conversation look like? Not to overgeneralize, but does that often have a certain look? Now that
Well, one thing, know thyself is eternal. You just don't stop, at that point. There are stages and there's certain levels of consciousness. And, we all, I had one teacher tell me that we're all prisms. And it depends on how much light you're going to let come through to magnify that prism. I think that when you get to a certain space, because my divine counterpart and I are not in alignment. We're more in alignment on a soul level than we are in a mundane perspective. But on a mundane perspective, I think we both are so afraid of how powerful that we both are that a lot of times that, we kind of hide behind that space. But the healing is happening. There's different things that are happening on the planet. So in a certain space, I think that it just depends on where you are in your consciousness. Everybody, two people are not going to always be in the same space. So it has to be some level of respect, number one. Because, know thyself doesn't just stop like, oh, I'm just self-mastered. And it's a continuous thing. But if you can get on a certain level where there's a level of respect between the both of you, I think that is, a balanced plane to actually start from, build on a foundation from that. Because I think two people, are always going to be in a certain space where they're going to see things differently, and, when you can respect that other person for where they are, because I'm telling you, when I first met my friend, he got on me about everything, and I realized that it was just me. He was mirroring me. And I had to really look at myself and be like, well, why is he cussing me out? Why is he calling me these names? Why is he talking to me this way? And it was an opportunity for me to sit and be like, Patty, you need to have some self-love and some honor. And he's just my mirror and my reflection. Sometimes some of us don't want to look in that mirror. Sometimes we want to be the victim, and we're never the victim. So when you can get to that space, because right now I think that, like I said, he and I in an astral plane, in a soul space, we're there, and then when we see each other, it's there, but it's still some fear that's still there, and I'm working on that within myself, because when I work on myself, I work on him too, because we have the same soul. So it just depends on, I think respect has a lot to do with all of it, and when you're in a common ground and can identify that and be honest about what that really is, then you can, propel from that space.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you need a bit of patience there too. If he's cussing at you, you're cussing at him, vice versa, and you're taking a second to think about, hey, wait, I'm a reflection of this person, so it sounds like you had to have somewhere in your mind at some point, you're not caught up in that moment, you're just slowing down, you're sort of processing what's going on.
I had to have an aha moment because I've dated different men in my life. And I said, this person is different. But what happened was I had a reading, and before I met him, someone told me that my mother had already transitioned, that I was going to be meeting this person. And it was somebody that I would not be physically attracted to. I didn't think that I wanted to be in this space based on, what they did in their life. And when I met the person, they were just staring at me in my eyes, and I was like, oh, shit. And I was like, I'm so scared. I don't even want to be around this person, you know what I mean? And, the world knew who this person was. I didn't know who he was, you know what I mean? I'm just being myself. But, you know, throughout the years, it's so funny because I just laugh. I'm like, you know what? I used to be like, just wait a minute, quit yelling at me, I'm trying to get it. Because it was really a reflection, something I needed to look and work on within myself. Look, I'm a very strong-willed woman. And I realized that you gotta let a man be a man. Sometimes women, we gotta be quiet. You know what I mean? And the communication can flow a lot better in that perspective, in that way. And he really broke down to me. He said, I don't feel like a man around you. Now, I don't know if that was a reflection of what I didn't feel about myself, and I was reflecting that back to myself, or that I just needed to listen from that perspective, because that's what he thought. So, you know, when you can, I think when you can get to a certain space, because we've got some work to do, you know, and I think when you can get to a certain space where you both respect where you are, and you can defeat these challenges, and everything isn't just running lilies in the valley and it's all beautiful. Because when I look at love, I don't think love is just that, you know, it's between a man and a woman. I think once you are that phoenix, you know, rising from the ashes, you can come out of this mess and still be cool, and still realize that, you know, you had to overcome these things to know something about yourself. Then that's what it truly is in the capacity of unconditional love. And I know that that's a part of my soul journey. But to get back to what you were saying, I think that it has to do with where you are in a certain level of respect, and respect where that person is.
Okay. Lisa, go ahead.
Something that just came to my mind when my sister was speaking. If the spirit is out of whack, it will show up in the finances, because then you'll get to and say usually there's a duality when it comes to finances, because you usually won't have two extreme savers or two extreme spenders. And then you normally have, there's the logical person and an emotional person. Now, typically, it's the man who's more logical when it comes to money and the woman who's more emotional. However, I have seen a reverse, where the man is more emotionally attached to money and the woman is more logical. Like the man, you know, the man is, well, the emotional person may be dreaming about, this is what I want to accomplish, blah, 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 you know, 20 years down the road, and she's like, yeah, but we have to take care of this today. Like, this is where we are right now. And there is a duality that, you know, is bringing balance and harmony, but when it starts to get out of whack is where your spirit is uneasy. Like, if just broaching the subject about money with your partner brings a spiritual unease, like you're even afraid to approach the topic, there's a deeper issue within the relationship. Maybe the respect is out of whack. Maybe you guys really aren't eye to eye or on the spiritual level, you know, compatible. And it just happens to be manifesting in that way. And then also, you can really tell when it's out of whack when it comes to financial abuse, because that is also a way you can tell a relationship is out of whack, when one person tries to use money to control the other. If you feel like you have to give all your money to this person and then ask for some of your money back, like not, like whether or not you decided that one person won't work, but then you have to go ask for an allowance. I'm grown. I stopped getting an allowance when I was like, what, 10, 15, something like that? I'm 33 right now. I don't allowance, excuse me. If there's that kind of issue, you may need to be looking at what's going on underneath the surface, because everything will come out manifested in the money, but the money is not I would say money is not the roof, money is just the mirror.
Wow. Let's give our panel a hand, y'all. Let's give our panel a hand. Before we get into audience Q&A, we do have some audience questions I'm hoping, for our panelists. I just want to acknowledge Ms. Taisha Jones. This show was just as much a brainchild of hers as it was mine. This came out of a conversation, our usual conversations, right, about black love and everything in between. And she actually suggested that we have a panel representing different aspects of black love. Now, we had the physical part, as said on the Facebook, that didn't quite work out, but I think we did very well tonight, considering the fact that we have 3 different perspectives. There's a lot of overlap. People got to speak beyond what they were assigned to do, so I think it was very, very beneficial. I just want to acknowledge Taisha. Let's give her a hand, y'all, please. All right, perfect. Professor Wimbush, appreciate you. Please come up to the mic if you don't, I'll bring it to you. All right,
You can
good.
hear me. I want to know, do you think someone can recover from the sunken place? Can an African recover from the sunken place? I had someone a couple days ago, a sister, and she asked me, she had been married to a white man for some years. I don't want to get into the details, but he spiritually destroyed her. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. And I'm thinking about Kanye, and I don't want to get into all this stuff, but can someone recover from, spiritually from the sunken place? Kanye's under the sunken place, but, I'd just like to hear some of your thoughts on that.
I think so. I think what we have to kind of do is change our way of thinking. Our experiences come to us to teach us something about ourselves. So the experience of being in a sunken place will actually put you in a space where you become introspective. Put you in a space for you to be looking for answers. There's something that we all need to heal in our lives. And these experiences that we have, they help to bring these things up. If you don't have, like, when I spoke at the 10,000 Black Men's March, and we were in Lafayette Park, and I gave an example about contrast and focus. And the White House was behind us. I'm like, you always have to have contrast in order to have focus. You always have to have that contrast to know what your focus is. So if I'm speaking to you and this is behind you, the contrast is not what you're focusing on. You're focusing on me. So we create experiences for us to be able to defeat the challenges that we have or whatever needs to be healed. We can do anything. But we have to understand who we are as creators and co-creators from a spiritual perspective. I had a sister one time that was at one of my events with Dr. Delbert Blair. He's an ancestor now. But she was an energy channeler, and this energy spoke through her. She was not present, but it spoke through her, sort of like Abraham Hicks. And it said that your gifts are your blessings, or whatever your experiences are. They're there to teach you something great about yourself. Because in your lowest space, there's time for you to have self-reflection, someone else to come to assist you, because we're all here to assist each other. So in some capacity, some of us actually just come here to probably just be killed or die, to affect somebody else, to help assist them in whatever their journey is in their life. So I think that you can do that, and that's why the experience came in the first place. And I'm just saying that from a spiritual perspective, but from a psychological perspective, maybe you can answer that better.
My psychology is spiritual. Doc, Malodoma Somé of water in the spirit. He was in the sunken place in that French Jesuit school. He had to come back to his village, though. He had to break free, and he had to walk back to his village, and then the elders had to give him permission to go through his rites of passage, which was more dangerous now than it would have been had he gone through when he was supposed to. Malcolm Little, sunken place, became Malcolm X as he was climbing out, eventually became El Hajj Malik El Shabazz.
That's right.
So he arose from the sunken place. Hell, I was in the sunken place, just by product of my environment where I grew up. And so I say that yes, we can recover from the sunken place. We have examples of it, but there are certain things that will be required. Like a person will have to be pointed in that direction and not actively trying to stay in the sunken place. And then what the Spike Lee joint though, the Drop Squad, deprogramming and restoration of pride. And so some of those people were lavishing in the sunken place, but then the Drop Squad would come and scoop them up.
But specifically about marrying a white person.
Yes.
Like the examples you just did, Malodoma didn't marry a white woman. I don't think. Somebody told me something later on that happened to him, but what about a white person?
Well, a black person marrying a white person.
Yeah, can they
and that being the sunken place.
Right, can
Yes. Kanye
become Malcolm?
Can Kanye come about the sunken? He'll never become Malcolm.
But you understand?
Yes.
He could.
I think so by those same examples. If if Malcolm can go from being Malcolm Little, pimping, running numbers, reportedly or allegedly having sex with white women in front of their white husbands, to being El Hajj Malik Shabazz, yes. I mean, that's a hell of a transformation. You know what I mean? Like literally conking and, you know what I mean? That's a serious transformation that took place there. So yes, transformation is possible. But you know, there's got to be the right things in place for it to happen. You know, a person that's holding on to the sunken place and fighting to stay there, you know, that's one of the ones I would just leave there. You know, try to put a deadbolt on the door so they can't come out and contaminate other people. Probably. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I think so. Just to answer your question straight, yeah, Doc, I think that people can recover from the sunken place. It's possible.
Hey, what if we do that? Just quarantine them real quick.
Hey, we might be better for it. We might be better for it. My mother told me a story the other day about some dude that was hustling out in front of his sister's apartment. You know, it's a black dude selling drugs out in front of a black woman's apartment building. Young lady. And all she came out, she said, hey brother, you mind not selling drugs out here in front of, you know, you take that up the block. He beat her damn near to death with a brick. He beat her damn near to death with a brick. So yeah, some folks need to be quarantined, if not just gone and removed. I mean, real talk. So yeah, so it's some that, you know, you want to try to restore, but again, not everybody gonna make it.
Yeah.
You know, and so you got to be able to discern between liability and asset. You know, and if you got some liabilities, you know what I mean, finances, you got the liabilities are liabilities. You know, and they should be treated as such.
Beautiful. Please, you ready?
Yeah, like you just said, liability is liability. And you can tell liability is if it's not only not bringing you any manifestation, and say not just, you know, money, but expanding beyond that. If it's not bringing you any manifestation and it's drawing from you, it's a liability. An asset will add to you, a liability will draw from you. So get rid of the liabilities. Now, like they we have a saying, you know, the poor will always be among you. That don't mean you gotta be one of them. You can be in this, there are people in the sunken place. That don't mean you have to be one of them. You don't have to be bit by the walking dead. You know, you don't kill yourself trying to save other people. So if they want to say that, let them stay. Let them stay. I say you can only do so much. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Appreciate that. If there are no more questions, we got time for one more. But if there's no more, we're gonna wrap it up for the night. Hold on, Bob Mosley?
Yes.
All right, hold on 1 second. Here you go.
Now we're here to talk about black love, right? What about black love in the sense that we're loving each other as a people? Now, I've had some experiences. I'm just going to say one that I experienced today, and that is you go to a place where someone is, this is a black person who's supposed to be greeting you, and you're there for a service, and they're speaking to someone else, as if you're not there, and you're standing there. They're supposed to be noticing you're there, and they're not even acknowledging you're there. But then a white person comes in, and what happens?
Excited. See the money.
The situation changes.
Yeah.
Now, is that person treating me that way because they love themselves or love black folks? I mean, how does love come in there? It's supposed to be some emotional kind of thing as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, what do you feel about that?
That could be a situation of actually self-hate. Right. You know, the person might have developed such a sense of hating themselves and people who are like them, and they might think the white folks' grass is greener. Money spends differently, like their dollars might fold differently than our dollars. You know, their coins might jingle louder. You know, so that's a function of self-hate. It could be. I mean, I've had that experience so many times. You know, I'm to a point now where I just point it out to folks, like, yeah, you know what? And it's kind of interesting how when these folks just right there too, like when these folks just walked up, like I've been standing here for I don't know how long, and you maintain your conversation, but as soon as Becky and Channing walk up, you got excited and you actually greeted them. So it's very interesting. I think I'm going to go ahead and take my business elsewhere at this point. I may be back, But at this moment, I can't spend with you just because of what just took place. You know what I mean? And you get the opportunity for them to recognize. So it might be a function of self-hate, which is, the opposite of self-love. And, we've been trained and taught that way. We've been conditioned to function in that way. They might have seen your locks, might have seen your aunt. They might, oh, here go one of those hoe taps. They bastardize our culture. You know what I mean? And people are programmed to dislike us. People are programmed to dislike us.
And as I say again, that's an opportunity for you to have that experience. People assist us with things. So that whole experience and that whole experience that you had was something for you to reflect on because you thought that something was not honorable. You know what I mean? So it propelled you to think in that regard, so you'll know how to move, in your own life in that way. So this is why I say everything that we do has to deal with self-love in every capacity. And people are here just to assist us with that in all of our experiences.
And then I'll just say, money talks. I'd like to thank you. I will be taking my business elsewhere, and because I did not receive the level of service to which I felt I was entitled as a human being, I will not promote your store. As a matter of fact, I may even, disparage your establishment, and I'll go find somebody else who respects my dollars, because they all spend the same at the end of the day.
I think that's a very appropriate note to end this edition of the All Eyes on DC show on. Once again, I'm saying PK Collins. This has been our very illustrious, diverse, well-spoken, knowledgeable, vast knowledge between the three of these panelists, and I'm very appreciative that they gave their time today to pretty much drop this knowledge and to weigh in on a very important issue. Next month, June 15th, we're discussing Black music in its many forms. The panel will be diverse as this one was, and we'll talk about the many forms of Black music, as many as we can, and just why music, the vibration, right? You guys know about that vibration, why no matter where it is across the diaspora, why it's important in pretty much putting this in the right mind frame. So I highly encourage you guys to come on out, and I encourage y'all to always keep All Eyes on DC on the forefront of your mind as you're looking for different mediums and different forms of media to tune into on your path to consciousness or on your path to a higher understanding in anything that you do. Peace and blessings, and I'll see you guys next month. It's always been a pleasure. Love y'all.
All right, good sister. Pleasure serving you.